Let's introduce ourselves. My name is Dr. Cusick. I'm a core doctoral faculty member and psychi advisor.
And hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Swanberg, librarian, and as well as in charge of many of the research-related activities at MSP and psychi staff advisor.
And I'm Nosa Bosky. I'm the graduate research assistant. I'm also a scientist.
And welcome everyone, and everyone joining us online as well.
So we're talking about this workshop's on developing a conference poster. And so one of the things that we want to look at is what exactly makes a good poster for a conference. So there's usually two options when it comes to posters. So there's an in-person option, which you can see the picture here that's probably taken from APA. You are in person, you're usually like in like an exhibit hall, like where there's lines and lines, rows of posters, and you're kind of standing by your poster and you have attendees, walking by, hopefully stopping. They're interested in talking to you. So sometimes I've been to conferences where there's maybe only been like 8 posters, and then I've been to APA where you get a time slot, you show up for that hour, and it's that many people, and then the next hour there's different posters and lots of people walking by. The other is the virtual posters. So oftentimes this can be done over like a breakout room over Zoom, where your poster essentially is online. It's like a slide, and people can interact and ask questions. You can also, I know for APA one year, I did this option where you record an audio transcript and send it to APA. So I couldn't be there in person, but I could send it, and the person, my co-author of the poster, we just kind of came up with a script and submitted it, and then people could listen to it as they wanted. So when we're looking at designing, what would make you stop at a poster? Can anyone think of what, if anything, might make you stop, especially if you're in a big exhibit hall like this and there's lots of people? Is there anything that would make you want to stop? Yes.
Like visual design, and then colors or a wrap or something.
Yeah. Especially with this, and there was one thing I did notice at APA too. They give you like a standard size, which I think we'll mention later on. But so most of the posters are this standard size, and I did notice that like this exactly. There were some people that had much smaller versions, so not as likely to be noticed or for people to stop by. They seem sort of dwarfed. Another thing too is when I went to APA with the poster, there was like 5 of us who worked on the poster. We worked on a manuscript, and there were 3 of us at APA. Even with that, 3 of us for one poster seemed like an overkill. So I told the students, "You got this," and then I kind of just walked around and let them handle it. So you don't need 7 people standing in front of a poster. I wouldn't want to stop by. I'd feel a little intimidated. So creating your poster, some of the basic things, once you submit to a conference, on their website or whatnot, you want to review the basic poster instructions. Again, they might tell you that it's required to be uploaded to a site. They're going to give you specific, for print posters, design specifications, things like that. And then you just want to think about what do you want to include in terms of your design approach? What are you wanting people to know? So what is the takeaway that you want them especially to get from the research that you're presenting? People might ask, why did you think of that question? Why did you think of that topic? That's also for those of you working on dissertation, that's often a question that you'll get about your dissertation, in your proposal meeting even, what even made you, come up with this topic? Why should the audience care about it? What sort of implications might your research have? Are there clinical implications? Are there social implications? Those are things you want to consider maybe highlighting on your poster. What information is needed to provide context for the discussion? So again, more in terms of implications, and kind of what things should you emphasize? So are like the purpose, the themes, discussion. So I think that's going to matter too on, you could do a poster on a literature review where you're going to talk about the literature. You might have themes within the literature and even discussion. Or if you're presenting like, here's research that I did, you would still have literature associated with that, but you'd probably focus on the outcomes and what were the new things that you found, maybe implications for future research as well. Any questions so far? You're probably monitoring people online, okay. So again, basic sort of components is a title. Again, you will, depending on where you are submitting, you might have, you know, the title has to be 10 words or fewer. Sometimes there's absolutely no limitation. I know with one in particular, it was very tight and we had to really work with, we had a particularly long title. And so like, how do we condense this to 10 words? It can be challenging, but, and then abstract or purpose. So what was the reason that you conducted the research, or what is your literature review about? Just again, coming up with usually an abstract. I've seen anywhere from like an abstract that's like 250 to 500 words. Is typical for what they're sort of looking for. Method. So again, if you did a research book, is it qualitative? Is it quantitative? How did you, what method did you go about in terms of data collection, data analysis, things like that? And these are all things you would sort of like want included in your poster. So I don't know if the people on Zoom can see the posters in here on the wall, but a lot of them talk about exactly this kind of stuff, like what was the procedure, what were the results? So what 3 things or 4 things, what were the main things that came out of your study? And then again, the implications. Here's the research that I'm presenting, and here's how it could affect things in the future in terms of a population, a diagnosis, any sort of clinical implications. And again, sometimes there's social implications that come out of psychological research, like specifically that related to like the educational system or the legal system or things like that. Jump in if I'm missing anything. Okay. All right, so the logistics. So we, I'm sure it was the librarians who designed our lovely templates that we have.
That was Candy and Dana.
Okay, Candy and Dana, sorry.
It was not Dana.
Want to give credit to the right people. So we have, I think there's a couple different MSP templates. If I click on this, will everyone, okay, that are available.
It's probably gonna be behind a login.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I'll just go back to, it's available on our website. So, all right. Yeah, on the resources page. So there's this one that's showing, but there's a couple different ones that are available up there. And in terms of like rules, in terms of logo use and things like that. And it's essentially, it's a PowerPoint slide and you are just plugging in your information. It's all set up. It's really easy to use. You're copying, you know, maybe parts of your literature review or your results section and putting it in, and then usually condensing, tweaking, editing from there. There's also, APA has their own website that talks about, or a section of their website that talks about how to create, you know, a better poster. But it hits on most of the things that we're talking about today as well. All right. Other logistics. So thinking about, just like you would if you are submitting a paper for publication, the authorship order. So like for one of the ones that I've done, we just, for the poster, we did the same authorship list as was on the publication that made the most sense. So who's contributing the most, and then everyone after that, essentially. I think you really want to be mindful of colors and fonts. As you saw with this to me, our template, you have it's red, white, and blue, different sections. There's enough, there's some color and there's some images like with the logo, but it's not too busy. And we're going to look at some good and not so good examples of what we mean in terms of that in a little bit. But minimum of a 28 font size for the main text. Again, our template sort of guides you through that. And considering the fact that people are usually standing, if Nosa and Stephanie were presenting a poster, people are usually like 4 or 5 feet away. So they need to be able to see the text. You want it big enough, for people to be able to see that. And then bullet points versus sentences. Bullet points are always easier to read. It's rather than this long, sort of stream of text, especially if someone is standing back and looking at it. Bullets can be very helpful. Just avoiding any chart junk. So if you do have a graphic in there, if you have a chart in there, you want it to make sense, like to be there. Like this one has like one chart. I've seen other posters that have like 7 different charts. That's too much. It's like, you're usually, when you think about a poster, you are a little bit longer than an elevator speech, but you are trying to give the people walking by or listening a snapshot of your research. So taking, again, important research or a lit review that you've done and really kind of condensing it into the main points. Considering the placement of charts and figures, and again, Stephanie will go over this a little bit more in terms of what might work, what might not. And then if you are using someone else's figure or chart, just making sure to cite. Speaking of citations, a lot of times what people do for their references is they'll have, see this one in the middle, there's the QR codes. You just upload all your references on like a PDF. And then the QR code can take people to it, because there's often, like, if you have 25 references, you can't list that on the poster. It would take up too much space. Let's see. Okay. Any questions before I go on to printing? So once you have your template completed, side note, always have someone else look at it, please. It's real easy to miss things, especially with small text. So again, confirming the conference guidelines for the size of the poster. They'll usually tell you, again, the size, 4 feet by 3 feet is typical. And the MSP template is, kind of set to this size. So when you fill it in, and then you're usually like uploading it, and picking the size, it's real easy and transfers really well. Poster Nerd, this is the only one that I'm aware of. I mean, you could do this at like a Kinko's or, FedEx. Poster Nerd, it was real easy. You go to their site, you upload it. It wasn't that expensive. I think around $40 to $50 with, I think there was a discount, and 2-day turnaround. So it was simple, easy. It comes in like a tube and you're good to go to bring it to your conference. So I always advise, if you are traveling and going to a conference, have the poster shipped to you directly and just carry it with you so it doesn't get lost in the airport or at a big convention center or hotel. And then you are all excited to do your poster and you show up and you have no poster that arrives. So,
and a couple things to piggyback off what Dr. Cusick was saying, because I received this at APA last year, is what APA does is that they have agreements with printers around the area, so that if you do need to have an emergency print, you have the capability to do so. So always check with the conference, because they may have arrangements for that. And then one thing I did is that when they deliver your poster, they deliver it in like this mail tube, which can be hard to navigate with at the airport. So Amazon has like great travel tubes that have like a stylish handle, and so it looks super cool. So you can like carry it with you through the airport, and then oftentimes the flight attendants, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, you have this poster, cool. Let me put it up front for you," and then you can grab it. So that's another option as well. Or if you're staying at a hotel, like APA does this too, where they suggest that sometimes you get it shipped to your hotel and then have it waiting for you, because you never want to be in that position of, oh, I left my tube at the airport, and then you're kind of scrambling to deal with those kinds of things. So there's a couple little things just to make the process easier for you.
And I know in this room 4, all the posters are paper, but if you go into room 3, you'll see that a couple of them are cloth or vinyl. So that actually helps if you are willing to spend a little bit more money. You can fold it and then just put it inside your luggage. But again, it's really personal preference, and there are a lot of options. In addition to Poster Nerd, one of our students, and we've used this in the past for other things, but has used Allegra Printing in Southfield, and they were the ones that did the vinyl posters in room 3. So there are local options as well if you prefer to not use a company to ship, but there's all sorts of ways you can do it. The one thing with folding the cloth is then it has wrinkles in it, so then you would have to iron it out at the hotel.
I hope that like the iron doesn't mess with the ink and things. But yeah, you see a lot of those cloth posters are starting to become a lot more common at the conferences.
So you do have lots of potentials now for this, but there are many ways to go about it. So Nosa and I are going to go through an activity with you all. We think sometimes it's easier to see existing posters and kind of discuss some of the things that Dr. Cusick talked about in the context of seeing real things. So for those on Zoom, I added this into the chat, and then I just passed around a sheet as well. What this is it's a poster review checklist. We're using it today to review and critique existing posters, but you can also use it as a checklist for your own posters when you're designing it, to think about the things that are being put on your poster. So really between the two categories of poster content and poster appearance. So we did talk about some of the content already. Again, looking at what the actual conference suggests and the type of work that you do. So again, if it's structured as in you're presenting a research study, you would use more of that structured heading. If you're doing more of a lit review, it might be by theme or thematic. But looking at it and reading it kind of like you would just anything from left to right. Does it make logical sense? Is there a nice balance between the images, and do they have purpose? A lot of times I see clip art or things slapped on posters just to take up space. And there's always something that you can add. It could be pulling something content-wise out of your poster and making a nice image about that. But again, consider what types of things you're putting on your poster as well, and making sure it actually has a contribution to it. And then again, from the readability standpoint, we're going to look at a lot of examples here. And I think a lot of times that's what stands out when you're looking at existing posters is, ooh, do I really like this or do I not from looking at it? And that gets back to, would someone stop to look at this, or are they going to look and say, I can't even from 5 feet away understand what's going on and immediately walk away. So there's a lot to think about. So we're going to go through some example posters, and these were all provided as examples with permission from our authors. So thinking about the things that we talked about from a content perspective as well as from a aesthetic perspective, what are some of the things that stand out to you in this poster? What did they do well?
The 3 little bullet point boxes there really draws attention to those concepts.
Yeah, exactly. So we have creativity, community, and caring. Immediately we're drawn to that. we know what those sections are going to be about. And the bullet points also help too, just to kind of divide it up. That's great. What else?
I think the side pieces, I think it's helpful, like clearly those pieces are like major like content areas for them. And so, like you said, with the bullet points, like it clearly like there's a flow and there's an understanding like progressing between the two.
Exactly. So we have, again, kind of the columns that are bookending and looking at the domain 1, 2, and 3. It's very easy to quickly look at, like, that's a model that was, done by Riggles and other, and we can figure out what that model was proposing really quickly. And then the feature research. Exactly. Okay, what are some of the ways this poster could improve?
All the layout.
Tell me more.
The eye is drawn to color, so I've got orange here, but then I've got it at the bottom here and there. Some boxes are overlapping, others aren't.
It's a lot of text too.
It is.
And so
Yes.
that's something to remember is, especially when, because you have to think, you're one poster of many and an APA in this large, massive exhibit hall. And so what a lot of people will do is what I call drive-by reads. And they'll casually like walk by and like glance. And so I am a visual kind of learner. So like I'm attracted to graphics, to the text. Is the text big enough? And so if I'm like strolling by casually, I want to be able to, the text needs to be able to grab you so that you are then invested in kind of coming over and getting the spiel of whoever is there. So you want to consider how much text to graphics can you include without kind of sacrificing the integrity of the poster.
I think for this one too, I think if he were to redo it, like even making the title positively gay and what it says underneath, making that bigger, like that's an attention grabber right there, the play on words and things like that, so.
Yes.
There's a lot of dead space on the top and the bottom that
Yes.
could have been used to make the text bigger.
Oh, I touched. Yes, if you notice how much of the bottom borders that's a lot of empty space that could be used. And I even noticed something simple as like, why is there a big space here, but none of the other boxes have such a large like opening in spacing there? So again, small little things that could be done. Here's another one. What are your thoughts? Very small. Yes, the font is extremely small.
Gray on black was what stood out first. We just talked about contrast.
Yes. And the gray boxes are definitely making it difficult to read. And the green is distracting. This was before we had the templates. So now we have the nice templates that provide a lot more of that for us.
And then you have the blue up top. So it's like, if you're going to incorporate colors, you want it to kind of be uniform throughout the poster, because if you have too many different colors, it's distracting. And so it's like, okay, cool. You see the blue at the top. I personally probably would have ran with the blue theme, but then you add the green and then you have like the gray. And so it's visually just kind of, it doesn't pull you in.
In addition to the text being small, there's only text. So we don't have any visuals. Can you tell me just, again, the font is small, but just looking at this, where could have been some ways to incorporate a figure or a table or something just based on the content? I see two possibilities right off.
History.
Mhm.
Maybe history. I think the one that really stands out to me is I don't know what room it's in, but it has a timeline of the things that they were talking about. And every time my eye goes to that poster because it just feels so readable.
Yes, I think having like the history broken up, and we can see we have a Lothstein's 1984 summary of psychological functioning, and it has 5 parts. That could easily have been made into like a pie chart or a figure or something that would have represented what are the 5 functions that model was using, and then you could talk to it as part of your actual like elevator speech as opposed to it being all of that text. I was also looking at the results here because we have 3 different tests. So we have the MMPI-2, the 16 PF, and the NEO findings. That I feel like also could have been some way incorporated into a table.
Table, a graph. Yeah, what are our thoughts about this one that uses the template?
I like it, a little bit of dead space up top, but otherwise it's easier. Maybe could use a little color.
And then you got the logo at the bottom, so you still know what
Mhm.
school it is, but it gives a little bit of a visual kind of representation. Yeah, there's a lot of text, but the spacing is uniform throughout the template, so it just has a more professional look.
Like the subheaders,
That-
like purpose, like if that's bolded, so like if I was looking for something specific, I need to read like the whole thing, I could go to, oh, future research, okay.
That's great because I think that's what stood out to me is that even though this is a lot of text, it is broken up nicely by those subheadings. What about this one? Print two.
That's an interesting layout with approach and the schedule all down there. So it's almost like instead of reading like up and down, left to right, you're just reading left to right.
Exactly. From a readability standpoint, you're kind of looking background, approach, and then the results and then the table of events are kind of like lined up. But you're right, like that does have the possibility of being read differently depending on how you're interpreting it. Absolutely.
Very consistent, like everything is very like spaced, very consistent.
But yes, like we definitely had the goal of making this very like quick to look at. And this was an example of one we had to present on Zoom. So we weren't doing this in person. We did this in a Zoom breakout room. And so that presented a little bit more of a challenge in terms of how do we get this across in a Zoom session where your screen is small versus on a entire like printout.
The only other color than blue and white being the red on the table, instantly draws your eye to that
Yes.
first.
And that was our goal. And I think that's a good reason. We've seen posters that are using color for not a clear reason. And this was definitely used very intentionally to draw the eye to that particular table.
Thoughts about this one?
I like the layout. The graphs are going to be hard to read.
Yeah, even on a screen, those aren't coming across very well.
Right, so when you're adding figures and graphs and tables, you want to think about the color scheme, how dark is the font, and what are you trying to relay, so that you can have a clear picture of, so that your audience member can have a clear picture of what's going on. I know personally, I like the visual at the top where it has Michigan School of Psychology, but like that's a picture that draws you in, especially when you read the title. Like if you're walking by and you see something that says kink, you're gonna be like, okay, that's interesting.
Mhm.
And that picture pulls you in, and then you can then read the rest of it. So always think about how your visuals can pull in the audience members.
Just know if you want to do something like they did, where they have that logo like edited over a picture, that's something you would want to get approved by Candy or me. But I'll send it to Candy. She actually approves them.
Yes, I think this is one of the reasons we included this one to talk about the use of the logo specifically, because the templates are laid out so that the logo is a certain way. And so if you want to change the use of that at all, that's something that you'll want to get reviewed before printing. Okay. Any other thoughts about this poster? This is our last
I wish there was more color,
one. It is a lot of blue on blue on blue. Like I could see, especially like here with the exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory, making those a pop color, like red. And even in the tables, like we have a periwinkle blue, and it doesn't stand out. And I know we can't read it very well from this angle. If it were printed larger, we might be able to, but even the colors might have been used to make it pop a little bit more. Okay. So I'm gonna pass it over to Nosa to talk about
Presenting the poster. So one thing, even before you present your poster, when you get Poster Nerd will send you a proof, like the day of that you submit it. You want to review that proof and maybe even get somebody else to review that proof. For my APA poster, because I had looked at it so many times, I missed a spot on the table, and I didn't realize that in the proof, I guess it was blank. So as I'm getting ready to like review the poster while I'm out in Denver before I left my Airbnb, I noticed a gap. So I had to like get my friend who has better handwriting to kind of include that. So you always want to like read your proofs, double read your proofs, just to make sure it has all the data and all the information that you are looking to have on there. So it's more than just having a nice looking poster. Part of it is kind of really setting up your discussion and implication sections to create engagement. So you want your audience members to ask you questions, to be curious. And so you really want to be intentional about how you craft your discussion and implications. Are you addressing practice theory and future research? Because the whole point of the poster and the research is like, okay, what are we doing with this information? How is it contributing to the wider literature body? And then etiquette. The way you hold yourself, the way you present yourself is deeply important, because you could be a one in a sea of posters. And so, yes, your poster visually wants to bring in the audience member, but if I'm kind of like, my poster's right here and I'm just like this, and I'm not like, you have no reason to engage me. You have no reason to talk to me. So even like, I even had to like figure out like, okay, am I going to stand like here? Or am I going to stand like over here? Like, you don't want to stand in front of your poster to block it. So you really want to be intentional. And then also like smiling, being welcoming, kind of like scanning people's faces to show that you're open, and even being able to acknowledge someone. So like I may be talking to you about the poster, and Dr. Cusick I might out the corner of my eye see that she's walking by and scanning it. So while I'm engaging with you, I might make brief eye contact to acknowledge Dr. Cusick and be like, okay, I'll give you the spiel in a couple minutes. Also as well. And so giving people time to read the poster is huge. Sometimes you might be really excited to be like, cool, let me tell you about my poster and tell you all these things. But it takes time for someone to, walk up, read the title, maybe scan it, and then you don't want to hover, and you want to kind of be more relaxed and essentially just have a warm, inviting presence. And don't be offended if people don't even really talk to you, because sometimes some people are really trying to maximize the number of posters they read. And if you go to an event like APA, there are just rows and rows and rows of posters. So a lot of people will do, like I said, those drive-by kind of walkthroughs of the posters first, and then come back to the specific ones that they like. And then options for sharing your posters with viewers. So in the advent of technology, QR codes are amazing because you can pack a lot of information in that QR code document, and the QR code doesn't have to take up a whole lot of space. So some people will take pictures of your poster, but you can have like a QR code so that they can reference and, in their own time be able to review your poster. That is also really helpful. Depending on where you are, you might have paper copies or a handout to include with the poster. And then also having your contact information on the poster is really important, whether that's in the bottom or in a QR code version. Or I even brought I have some business cards with me that have my contact information. I brought that with me because, sometimes people want to have more extended conversations about your research and your poster. And so you want to be able to have a easily accessible way for them to contact you. That even happened to me. I was standing near my poster and a lady walked by and, funny enough, happened to have worked with my dissertation external consultant on the topic. And so we were able to exchange information. She never ended up reaching out, but it was a really cool moment. But I had a card to give her. I had some ready contact information so that she was able to do that. So you really just want to approach it from a place of accessibility and also just recognizing that people may be really interested in your research. I mean, these conferences are ways for you to figure out what's going on in the field, what is the new research, and being able to keep abreast of it. So posters are really a great way to do that.
I wanted to actually give another example from the etiquette piece and the business card piece. So this may feel so awkward for you to have to stand for an hour just waiting for people to come up to you. One of the things that I've done and that really helps is just having a warm drink in my hand. That's literally giving me a little bit of a boost, like, okay, I have my tea or my coffee or my hot chocolate, whatever it might be. But it's giving you kind of that little bit of warmth too, and you're like, okay, I feel better, just not as like,
it's also your security.
Yes.
Your security item. Instead of the blanket, you have a water bottle
Exactly.
or something with you to kind of keep your hands occupied while you're kind of standing and waiting for people to engage.
The body language you did, I've seen that so often where it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do or where I'm supposed to stand, but if you have, something to do with your hands that feels a little more natural, where you don't feel like you don't exactly know where to put it. The other thing about business cards is I've done this at conferences a lot. If I get questions or someone wants to follow up with me, I'll ask them for their business card and I'll put a note for myself right there on the moment on the back of their card saying what were they interested in talking to me about. And then I come back with a small stack of, I'm going to follow up with this person and whatever it might have been, if they want a copy of the poster, if they want to learn more, if they're interested in, connecting on another project, that gives me a mental cue as to what did I talk to this person about? Because when you have so many people coming and interacting with you in a very short amount of time, you lose track of who you talk to. So that's one of my tips and tricks for just keeping track of who talked to me about that one thing. And I don't remember the, pile of cards I have in front of me, but that's one trick that I use.
And one thing that I've noticed at conferences recently is that people are using digital business cards. So you can even design digital business cards online for free and have a QR code on your poster and say, oh, okay, I would love to talk about this more, but please scan my QR code and reach out to me and then we can set something up. So that's just another option. But really, when you're presenting your poster, you want to be open, warm, and friendly, and important, dress well. Because, there's a time and a place for jeans, but you're in a professional setting, and you're not only representing yourself, you're also representing the school. And so that's something to take into consideration because you're going to have the school's logo on there. And so you want to put the best foot forward. And so being able, and also you never know who's going to stop by your poster to check it out. Usually at a lot of these conferences, there's a faculty member or someone. And so you want to show that you've put your heart into this. But posters, they can be a lot of fun. It's a way to show off your research and show off your skills and a good way to interact with other people in the industry as well.
Literally, one of our current PsyD students that just went through the APIC match said that because they presented a poster at a conference, they met the director that they eventually got their match
Oh,
with.
wow.
And so if they had not done that project, if they hadn't attended that conference, that may have never happened. So the smallest things that you never think of could lead to bigger things. So absolutely about the professional putting your best foot forward, it makes an impact.
Any questions so far? I think we've got like one or two more slides up. Yes.
Sorry if this is like a simplistic question,
Oh.
but like, I'm kind of prompted by what you said, Stephanie, like, what is like the main purpose of presenting a poster, like outside of like, this is something I'm interested in, this is what I'm doing, like, is it networking, is it, I don't know, I like.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's multiple purposes to presenting a poster. One, I think part of it is like, aside from your own interest, developing the ability to discuss your research findings in an easy way. Because, oftentimes the whole purpose of the poster is to, why am I losing my words? To essentially share your research and information, but in layman's terms. Not everybody has the time to sit there and read your 25, 35 page publication. And so being able to share that with the masses, share that with people in a way, and I think it's a good skill to develop, so that if someone asks you like, what's your dissertation? What are you working on? I can easily say, I'm working on third culture kids and racial battle fatigue, and this is what it means, and this is why I chose it, and this is why it's important to you as a layperson. But then also there are great networking opportunities. Like, you never know who you're gonna meet, you never know who you're gonna see. You might end up, the person next to you might have a really cool poster, and then you end up becoming research buddies and developing more things like that as well. So I think there's so many different uses for posters, and also just being able to advocate for yourself and be able to really just show that you have that strong research background that is informing your clinical practices.
I would say, just to add to that too, when we're talking about like, so if you are going to present a poster at a conference, it's like an hour time commitment, but you're standing there, you're maybe talking to people for 5 minutes at a time. Sometimes if people don't have a lot of professional presentation experience, that seems a lot more feasible than I'm going to, put on a conference session for an hour and a half, right? And in terms of even when you submit for a poster, you have a much higher percentage of your poster getting accepted than compared to like a conference presentation or symposia, just because they have fewer slots available. So it's just a good way to like get something accepted at a conference too.
And it's also to add to your professional CV, because you're at a point where you need to show your body of work. And so if I, for example, I really want to focus on racism, racial identity, especially in my clinical work, like moving forward. And so I want to be able to show that, okay, you're picking me as your therapist, but I have this breadth of work that shows that I have taken the time to understand this process, to understand the subject in a deep, meaningful way. So I have receipts to back up what I'm saying, essentially. And so you really want to start to develop your CV, and posters are great ways of doing that. Because like, shout out to Dennis and the publication group, that's another thing. But I feel like this is a good way to it's the middle ground between doing like papers for school, which those you can turn into posters pretty easily. And we did that in a previous workshop as well, so you can always refer to those recordings to take a look at that. But posters are just a great way to kind of share the research, because like, you've done all this work, and you want to be able to share it with people who can gain the knowledge.
Mentioned like digital business cards, and it sort of prompted me to think that like anywhere I go, I keep my like personal business card on me for like my practice, but I'm not there representing me, I'm representing the school. Do we have like like little school business cards or whatever? Or is it just kind of one of those like, hey, you can reach me at, and we point to the
Yeah.
poster?
Yeah, it's typically you can reach me at, but it's not my idea to have small little MSP. I don't know if that would be something to.
I mean, we have the template that we use for like the employee business cards. So I think like it would be possible. I think there would just probably high probability we could do that, but I'm not gonna say 100%.
I mean, I find the actual physical business cards, people, at least in the conferences that I've been to recently, that's not usually happening. It is more just like, oh, like go connect on LinkedIn, or they'll, you know, a digital business card or a website or something like that. But
Should we have the LinkedIn? Speaking from someone who has like no social media presence, is that helpful in this community or?
It's funny, like I thought LinkedIn was like honestly for old people years ago, and then I became a professional, and LinkedIn is popping like Facebook. Like it's what Facebook used to be, and like people are very engaged. You're connecting with so many different providers, connecting with people from conferences, and so yeah, like if you have a LinkedIn page, I would beef it up, just so you can have a part of your professional presence.
at the same time, I would say if you want to avoid any sort of social media,
Yeah.
there's ways,
Yeah, there's always ways to connect with people, depending on whatever you're comfortable with. And also like sometimes like it can be good to start to develop that kind of online presence so that when you enter into that clinical realm, there's already like a trail of understanding of who you are.
There'll be some presentations on that in May as part of Career Service Month, that will cover like LinkedIn, Psychology Today, a bunch of the different networking sites, and like how I might want to use them for like a deeper dive. So those will be coming.
Okay, yeah, because like I have Therapy Den and Psychology Today for my practice, but I personally haven't used any of that stuff, or like LinkedIn or Instagram or any of these other things. Half for mental health purposes.
Yeah, which makes sense because like
It sounds like LinkedIn.
social media is it's a double-edged sword. It can be used for good. It can also induce bad things as well. So it's really just figuring out what do you want your professional presence to look like. And posters are a huge part of that. There's one more.
So to wrap up, and again, if you have questions after this, feel free to reach out to any of us and we can help. So I think we already noted this, definitely make sure you have someone review your poster. I would say the same if you're writing a paper. It's always good to have a peer read it. They can miss, you can miss things looking at it multiple times. But again, your peers, faculty, librarians, all of us would be willing and have reviewed posters if you want us to take a look. Just again, looking at, are my ideas coming through, proofreading if there's any little thing that got missed. We've talked about, standing in front of your poster, and I think you get a number of different people walking by. You get the walk-bys where they maybe glance and then they keep going, they maybe come back. You get people who will come up directly and have a question that they want to ask you like immediately. But it's always good to sort of have your 5-minute, again, elevator speech where it's like, okay, someone comes up to you a lot more often than not. I think people will come up and say like, oh, okay, that's your topic. So tell me about your research. So what am I going to say to someone in 5 minutes? They're not going to want to stand there for 20 minutes, so what can I say in 4 or 5 minutes to give them the snapshot, and then they might have questions from there. So, and then other resources, again, in terms of conference funding, because we know, again, if you have the option to present virtually, that is very low cost option, but presenting in person, obviously, is going to be, a varying degree of expense, including printing your poster. MSP has student professional development scholarships. These are kind of rolling scholarships that are available. And then as a member of Chi, we have our professional development fund. Applications I think are going to be released today. So look for that email. If you are attending a conference, if you've been accepted to attend a conference, it's worth it to submit your it's a very easy application, and anywhere between, depending on how many people apply, we usually give about $100 to $150. So that can sometimes cover certainly poster printing. It can sometimes cover registration. Excuse me, or at least part of it. And then with that, a lot of the conferences, if you volunteer, they will help. That will help offset the conference fee. I'm gonna stop there because I'm gonna use some water.
I also see often, especially with divisions, there might be specific student scholarships available that you can apply for through the divisions. So if you haven't already signed up for those listservs, or if you tend to filter them into a folder, there's lots of often award or scholarship opportunities that come through that for conferences. So another place I would look.
How do we apply for those? Because I know I can at least speak for myself. I'm going to MPA in April, and I would like to apply for any and all financial resources.
So the MSP ones that we list here are all reimbursement based. So the general MSP one, that again is rolling. So if you are attending more than one conference, you can potentially each time submit for funds. They prioritize if you're presenting rather than just attending, and I don't think there's any specific amount that they give. They look at a number of factors for that.
Is that kind of like a save your receipts, apply when you get back?
Yes.
So I think you would actually submit it. You submit the application before you go, and then you will submit your receipt, and they'll cut you a check for that. If I remember correctly, if you're presenting, it's like, I don't remember the exact, but it's broken down by presenting versus attending.
If you go to msp.edu/scholarships, the school one is on there. You have to submit it at least 1 week prior to your event. So you want to make sure you do it before you go. But msp.edu/scholarship, and it's down at the bottom of the drop downs.
Thank you.
And then we'll also have a document. This is something I'm working on with Stephanie, is a document that kind of gives you different scholarship options, because there are a number of scholarships through the APA that you can apply for that are division specific depending on the conferences as well. So there's lots of different funding sources to help you attend a conference. And I would encourage you to, even if you are not going to be presenting a poster, attend a conference, because you never know what information you can get, and it's also such an amazing experience. I went to APA 2 years ago for the first time by myself, and it was such an amazing experience. I learned so much. You make all these connections, and it makes you want to go again, because there's a lot of cutting edge research. A lot of schools will be there to advertise as well, and a lot different EMR systems, and you can get trials to things. So yeah, lots of different options.
And just a reminder for anyone in Sci-Chi, you'll get an email with the call for applications that should be coming out today. And that's a once a year call, and then we do it once a year, and that is completely reimbursement based. So that one, if you haven't yet attended the conference, that's okay too. You can still apply, knowing that you're going to attend it and have costs associated with it if it's down the line. All right, well, I know we're at time, so thank you everyone for coming today. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We're always happy to help.